Part 1. The Armada approaches. The stars shifted in the darkness of space, and something massive emerged from the void. 12,000 warships materialized at once, their hulls gleaming with the light of distant suns. Each vessel stretched longer than Earth's tallest mountains, covered in weapons that could burn entire cities to ash. They moved in perfect formation, a wall of metal and fury that had conquered hundreds of worlds across the galaxy. Fleet Master Vexthar stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Dominion. His 3 eyes scanned the primitive solar system ahead. 9 planets orbited a yellow star, and the third one from that star was his target. Intelligence reports called it Earth. The creatures there called themselves humans. They had barely left their own planet, still using chemical rockets like children playing with fireworks. This would be an easy conquest, perhaps the easiest in his long career. "Send the message," Vexthar ordered. His voice carried the weight of 3,000 years of Imperial authority. The transmission burst across all frequencies, in every language Earth had ever spoken. "People of Earth, you are hereby claimed by the Veltheran Empire. Surrender within 72 hours. Dismantle your governments. Prepare for integration. Resistance will result in your extinction. This is your only warning." On Earth, chaos erupted. Every screen, every radio, every device received the message simultaneously. People poured into streets, some screaming, some praying, some simply standing in shock. World leaders gathered in emergency sessions. Military forces went to full alert. But what could they do? Telescopes showed the Armada clearly now. 12,000 ships, each one capable of destroying their entire civilization alone. Deep beneath the mountains of northern Korea, in a facility that appeared on no maps, Admiral Hyun watched the Armada on his screens. He was a thin man with gray hair and calm eyes that had seen 40 years of military service. Around him, hundreds of technicians worked at stations filled with technology that would have seemed like magic to the people panicking. On the surface above, "They're exactly where the simulations predicted," said Dr. Minji, stepping beside him. She was younger, brilliant, and had spent her entire adult life preparing for this moment. Her fingers danced across a holographic display showing the approaching fleet. Their formation, their speed, their energy signatures. Everything matches what we expected from a standard Veltheran assault pattern. Admiral Hyun nodded slowly. "And they have no idea we've been watching them for decades. They think we're primitives. Should we activate Protocol Nightfall?" she asked. "Not yet. Let them come closer. Let them think they've already won." On Mars, at Defense Outpost 7, Captain Doyen received the same data. His station sat in a crater on the red planet's surface, disguised as a simple research facility. Through his telescope, he could see the Armada growing larger by the hour. They were moving fast, confident, careless. He smiled grimly. They had no idea what waited for them. The 72 hours began to count down. News networks showed crying children, desperate prayers, and governments issuing statements about unity and hope. Some countries fired their nuclear missiles at the approaching fleet, but the weapons moved too slowly, burned their fuel too quickly. They would never reach the enemy. The missiles exploded harmlessly in the dark between planets, fireworks against an unstoppable storm. Vexthar watched the primitive weapons and laughed. "They resist with nuclear fire," he said to his officers. How charmingly backwards. These creatures haven't even discovered basic shield technology. This conquest will take less than a day. His tactical officer, Subcommander Calix, studied his instruments with growing concern. "Fleetmaster, our forward scouts have stopped reporting. 3 vessels sent ahead have gone silent. Their transponders simply vanished. Equipment failures." Vexthar waved a clawed hand dismissively. "These old ships malfunction in strange stellar environments. Send 3 more. We need detailed scans of their orbital defenses before we arrive." But the second group of scouts also vanished. Then a third group. Calix's concern grew into alarm. "Fleetmaster, we've lost 9 scouts now. All of them disappeared at approximately the same distance from Earth. There's a pattern here." "Impossible," Vexthar growled. "These primitives don't have the capability to destroy our ships. You're seeing ghosts in the scanner noise. Continue the advance." Deep in the hidden lunar base on Earth's moon, Dr. Minji watched the Veltheran scouts disappear one by one. "The automated defense grid is working perfectly," she reported. "Each scout that enters the perimeter is being pulled into a contained micro-singularity. They don't even have time to send a distress signal. Good, Admiral Hyun said. Make sure the main fleet doesn't see what's happening to them. We need the enemy confident and careless. Around the world, a few people knew the truth. World leaders had been briefed years ago about the secret defense network. Scientists who had worked on the project watched from hidden facilities. Military commanders waited at their stations following orders they barely understood. But the general population knew nothing. To them, Earth was defenseless, doomed, facing an enemy they couldn't hope to defeat. The Armada crossed the orbit of Jupiter, then Mars. They were close now, so close that people on Earth could see them with amateur telescopes. The Veltharan fleet spread out, preparing for orbital bombardment. Vexthar selected his targets: major cities, military installations, communication hubs. He would break them quickly, crush their spirit, make them beg for mercy. Interesting, Kalix said, studying his tactical display. The planet has no orbital defense platforms, no weapon satellites, no void-capable warships, nothing except primitive space stations and communications equipment. Exactly as intelligence predicted, Vexthar said with satisfaction. A civilization still crawling in its cradle. Fire a warning shot, destroy one of their cities, show them we're serious. But before the order could be executed, Admiral Hyun activated Protocol Nightfall. All across the Earth-Moon system, hidden installations came online. Technology that had been sleeping for decades awakened. Systems that humanity had built in secret, reverse-engineered from something found long ago. Something left behind by a civilization that had tried to warn them about what lurked in the galaxy. They're in position, Dr. Minji confirmed, watching the Armada settle into Earth's orbital space. Admiral Hyun's finger hovered over a single red button. Around him, every technician stopped working, waiting. The fate of humanity and the fate of the Veltharan Armada balanced on this single moment. Let them come a little closer, he whispered. Just a little more. The Armada advanced, weapons charging, confident in their inevitable victory. They had no idea they were already dead. Part 3. Instant annihilation. The universe bent. 12,000 points in space suddenly collapsed inward. Each Veltharan warship found itself at the center of an impossible force, a gravity well that should not exist. The ship's shields activated automatically, brilliant energy barriers designed to withstand planet-killing weapons. But shields meant nothing against the fundamental force of gravity itself. Vexthar had time for one thought. This is impossible. Then his flagship began to compress. Metal screamed. Bulkheads folded like paper. The artificial gravity systems failed, then the life support, then everything. The mighty Eternal Dominion, a vessel that had survived 100 battles across 100 worlds, crushed down to the size of a fist, then a marble, then a pinpoint of infinite density. It took 3.7 seconds. When those seconds ended, the Veltharan Imperial Armada simply ceased to exist. On Mars, Captain Doyen watched through his telescope as 12,000 bright points of light flared and vanished. One moment the sky was full of enemy ships. The next moment nothing, just empty space and distant stars. He had known it was coming. He had been briefed on the Singularity Net's capabilities. But seeing it happen, witnessing that kind of power deployed in reality, left him breathless. Command, this is Mars Outpost 7, he reported, his voice shaking slightly. Confirm total elimination of hostile fleet. 0 enemy contacts remaining. The sky is clear. In the command center beneath Korea, Lieutenant Bora sat at her communication station, hands trembling. She had recorded the entire engagement. 3.7 seconds. That was all it took to destroy an armada that had conquered hundreds of worlds. She played back the last transmission from Vexthar's flagship. The audio was distorted, compressed by the gravitational forces, but one word came through clearly in the Veltharan language. Her translator rendered it simply, impossible. Admiral Hyun stood motionless, staring at the tactical display. Every red enemy marker had vanished. Green friendly indicators showed their hidden defense stations operating normally. The dimensional anchors were powering down. The Singularity Net was deactivating. Everything had worked exactly as designed. Humanity had just achieved the impossible, and he felt no joy, only relief and exhaustion. Status report, he said quietly. Dr. Minji checked her instruments. All systems nominal. No cascade effects. The quantum field is stable. We didn't tear a hole in space-time, which is good news. She tried to smile, but her hands were shaking too. The singularities are collapsing safely. In about 10 minutes, there won't be any trace that the enemy fleet was ever here. Except for the 3 ships Commander G1 captured, Professor Tae-Yang added. The tractor singularities worked perfectly. 3 Veltharan warships intact and secured in dimensional stasis fields. Admiral Hyun nodded. Good. We'll need to study their technology. And we'll need prisoners for intelligence gathering. He paused, then added, make sure they're treated humanely. We're not conquerors. Commander G1's Ghost Phoenix materialized in normal space near the command center's location. Her ship's hull flickered one last time before becoming fully visible. She had watched the entire battle from her unique position between dimensions. She had seen the singularities form, watched the massive warships compress into nothingness, witnessed the single most devastating military strike in human history. Ghost Phoenix to command, she reported. I'm bringing in 3 captured vessels. They're sealed in dimensional bubbles. The crews are alive but unconscious. The stasis fields put them to sleep before they could activate any self-destruct systems. Well done, Commander, Admiral Hyun replied. Bring them to the lunar facility. We'll wake them up one at a time. On Earth's surface, people stood frozen, staring at their screens. Every major news network was broadcasting the same thing. Live footage from space telescopes showing the moment of the fleet's destruction. Scientists tried to explain what they were seeing, but most of them didn't understand it themselves. The enemy ships hadn't exploded. They hadn't been vaporized. They had simply compressed out of existence, pulled into impossibly small points of space that then vanished entirely. Fleet Admiral Sun Woo appeared on every screen worldwide. He was the supreme commander of unified Earth defense, a position most people hadn't known existed until this moment. He was an older man with steel gray hair and a face carved from determination. People of Earth, he began, his voice calm and steady. 72 hours ago, we received a threat from the Veltharan Empire. They demanded our surrender. They promised our extinction if we resisted. Today we showed them the price of threatening humanity. He paused, letting his words sink in. Around the world, billions of people listened in stunned silence. For decades in secret, humanity has prepared for this day. We discovered technology beyond our normal understanding. We studied it. We improved it. We built defenses that could protect our world from any threat. Today, those defenses worked exactly as designed. The Veltharan fleet is destroyed. Earth is safe. In the Veltharan Empire, 37 light-years away, Emperor Thexalon sat on his throne receiving the last transmissions from his armada. The black box data came through in fragments, compressed bursts of information sent in the microseconds before the ships died. His military advisors played the recordings again and again, trying to understand what had happened. The answer was clear and terrifying. Humanity had weapons that bent the laws of physics. They had defenses that made the Empire's best technology look like primitive clubs and spears. The Emperor, who had ruled for 600 years and commanded the conquest of 800 worlds, did something he had never done before. He ordered a complete retreat from that entire sector of space. Mark that solar system as forbidden territory, he commanded. No ship goes within 10 light-years of Earth. Ever. Send word to all our fleets. Humanity is not to be disturbed. Back on Earth, Fleet Admiral Sun Woo continued his broadcast. This message goes out to all civilizations in the galaxy. Earth is under the protection of humanity. We do not seek conflict. We do not desire conquest. But any act of aggression toward our world will be met with total obliteration. This is not a threat. This is a promise. This is your only warning. The broadcast ended. Silence filled the command center. Admiral Hyun looked at the empty tactical display where 12,000 enemy ships had been moments before. They had done it. They had saved humanity. But he knew this was only the beginning. Sir, Lieutenant Bora said hesitantly, we're receiving transmissions from across the galaxy. Hundreds of them. Other civilizations saw what we did. They're all trying to contact us. Screen them, Admiral Hyun ordered. Forward anything important to diplomatic channels? We're going to be very busy very soon. Dr. Minji stood beside him, looking at the same empty display. We just announced to the entire galaxy that humanity has weapons capable of instant annihilation. Every empire out there now knows we exist. Some will fear us. Some will respect us. And some, she paused, her expression grave, some will see us as a threat that needs to be eliminated before we become too powerful. Let them try, Professor Tae-Yang said quietly. We'll be ready. Commander Jiwon brought her captured ships to the lunar facility. The 3 Veltheron vessels hung in dimensional stasis, their crews sleeping peacefully, unaware that their entire fleet had been destroyed. Soon they would wake up. Soon they would be questioned. And soon, humanity would learn everything they needed to know about the empire that had threatened them. In the hidden facility beneath the Korean mountains, Admiral Hyun finally allowed himself to sit down. The weight of command, the stress of the last 72 hours crashed over him like a wave. They had won. Humanity survived, but as he looked at the incoming transmission count, steadily climbing into the thousands, he realized that the hard part was just beginning. Part 4. Revelations and Consequences. 1 week had passed since the battle that lasted less than 4 seconds. Earth was still trying to understand what had happened. Cities that had prepared for destruction now celebrated survival. But beneath the relief, anger and confusion bubbled like water about to boil. People wanted answers. They wanted to know why they had been kept in the dark. They wanted to know what else their governments were hiding. Director Yoonji stood at a podium in front of the United Nations building, facing cameras from every nation on Earth. She was the head of the Global Defense Intelligence Agency, another organization that most people hadn't known existed until last week. She was a small woman with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense attitude. Today, she would tell the world truths that had been hidden for nearly 40 years. In 1987, she began, her voice steady and clear. A probe crashed in the Gobi Desert. It wasn't from Earth, it wasn't from the Veltheron Empire. It came from a civilization that existed millions of years ago. A species that called themselves the Architects. They left warnings throughout the galaxy for younger civilizations to find. The cameras recorded every word. Around the world, billions watched in stunned silence. The Architects warned about what they called the harvest cycles, periods in galactic history when aggressive empires expand outward, consuming younger civilizations before they can develop defenses. The probe contained technology far beyond anything we had at the time. It also contained instructions, star charts, and predictions about when the next harvest cycle would begin. She paused, taking a breath. This was the hard part. World governments made a unanimous decision. We would study the technology. We would prepare, but we would tell no one. If hostile civilizations knew we possessed advanced technology, they might send larger forces, faster invasions. Our only advantage was the element of surprise, so we kept it secret. We built our defenses in silence, and we waited. On the lunar facility, Dr. Minji was conducting interviews with the captured Veltheron crews. The aliens had woken up in comfortable cells, confused and terrified. They had expected to be tortured or executed. Instead, they were given food, medical care, and treated with respect. This confused them more than anything else. Your empire has conquered 800 worlds, Dr. Minji said to one of the captives, a young officer named Threnix. What happened to the people on those worlds? Threnix looked uncomfortable. They were integrated into the empire. The useful ones became workers. The rest were eliminated. Dr. Minji kept her voice neutral. You mean killed? Yes. The alien couldn't meet her eyes. That is the way of conquest. The strong take from the weak. This is natural law, is it? Dr. Minji leaned forward. Your fleet was the strong. We destroyed it in less than 4 seconds. Does that give us the right to eliminate your entire species? Threnix went very still. You could do that? We could, Dr. Minji confirmed. But we won't, because we don't believe strength gives us the right to destroy others. We believe strength gives us the responsibility to protect. Back on Earth, Director Yoonji continued her press conference. She showed footage of the crashed probe, the hidden facilities, the years of research. She explained how humanity's best scientists had worked in secret, how they had reverse-engineered and improved the architect technology. She showed simulations of what would have happened if the Veltheron fleet had found an unprepared Earth. 12 billion casualties, she said flatly. That was the minimum estimate. The Veltherons would have killed anyone they couldn't use. Then they would have stripped our planet of resources and moved on. We had one chance to survive, one chance to be ready, and we took it. The public response was complicated. Some people understood and accepted the necessity of secrecy. Others felt betrayed by their governments. Protests erupted in major cities. But beneath the anger, most people felt relief. They were alive. Their world was safe. And now they knew they had guardians with power beyond imagination. Captain Doyen returned to Earth for the first time in 3 years. He had been stationed on Mars, maintaining the defense outpost, waiting for a threat that might never come. Now he was a celebrity, interviewed on every major news network. People wanted to hear from the man who had watched the battle from Mars. What was it like? A reporter asked him. Seeing the enemy fleet destroyed? Doyen chose his words carefully. It was necessary. It was powerful. And it was terrifying, not because of what happened to them, but because I understood what humanity had become. We're not the weak species we thought we were. We're something else now, something the galaxy hasn't seen before. On the edge of explored space, Ambassador Kyung met with representatives of the Vaxian Council. The Vaxians were a peaceful alliance of 23 species who had banded together for mutual protection. They had been watching Earth for decades, waiting to see what humanity would do with the architect technology. Counselor Rithmas, a tall being with blue skin and 4 arms, greeted Kyung warmly. Your species has passed the test, he said through a translation device. You had the power to destroy the Veltherans completely. You could have hunted down their homeworld and eliminated their entire civilization. Instead, you showed restraint. You defended but did not pursue. This is wisdom. We're not conquerors, Kyung replied. We never wanted this power. We just wanted to survive. That is why we wish to formally invite Earth to join the Vaxian Council. Rithmas continued. Together, we can defend against the aggressive empires. Together, we can protect younger civilizations from the harvest cycles. Kyung considered this carefully. I'll bring your offer to my government. But you should know we're not going to share our most powerful weapons. The singularity net stays under human control. We would not expect otherwise, Rithmas said. Every species in the council maintains their own defenses. We don't ask you to share your secrets. We ask only that you stand with us when darkness comes. Back in the command center, Admiral Hyun was reviewing intelligence reports when Lieutenant Bora rushed in with urgent news. Sir, we're receiving a message from inside the Veltheran Empire. It's encrypted, but our computers cracked it. It's from a resistance movement. There are Veltherans who oppose their government's policy of conquest. Admiral Hyun read the message carefully. It was from a group calling themselves the Free Veltherans. They had seen what happened to their armada. They were inspired by humanity's restraint. They wanted to overthrow their emperor and establish a peaceful government. Reply to them, Admiral Hyun decided. Tell them we support their cause. We won't provide weapons, but we'll share information about defensive technologies. If they can change their government from within, it's better than destroying them from without. Professor Taeyang was already working on new projects. The Singularity Net had worked perfectly, but he knew humanity couldn't rely on one weapon forever. He was developing something new, a subspace barrier that could protect an entire star system. It wouldn't destroy enemies, just prevent them from entering. A shield instead of a sword. If we can protect other worlds, he explained to Dr. Minji, we can prevent the harvest cycles without becoming conquerors ourselves. We can be guardians instead of tyrants. Commander Jiwon was training new pilots for the Ghost Phoenix program. There were 12 experimental stealth interceptors now, and more being built. Young pilots from every nation applied for the program. Everyone wanted to be humanity's defenders, flying ships that could slip between dimensions and become invisible to enemy sensors. The week ended with a global announcement. Earth's governments had agreed to form a unified defense command. They would still maintain their individual sovereignty, but military matters would be coordinated through one central authority. Fleet Admiral Sunwoo would lead this new organization, with Admiral Hyun as his second in command. But as the celebrations began, as humanity started to believe they were truly safe, long-range sensors detected something disturbing. 6 other major empires had received intelligence about Earth's capabilities. 5 dismissed it as propaganda or exaggeration. But one, the Korthax Dominion, was doing something different. They were assembling a fleet. Not 12,000 ships like the Veltherans sent, 40,000 ships, 3 times larger, 3 times more powerful. And they were preparing to test whether humanity's defensive capabilities were truly as devastating as reported. Director Yoonji brought the news to Admiral Hyun late at night. The Korthax are coming, she said quietly. Intelligence suggests they'll arrive in 3 months. Admiral Hyun looked at the star charts showing the massive fleet. Then we have 3 months to prepare, and this time the galaxy will be watching. We need to send a message that's even clearer than last time. What message? Director Yunji asked. That humanity doesn't just defend Earth, Admiral Hyun said. We defend anyone who asks for our protection. It's time to show the galaxy what we truly stand for. Part 5. Humanity's Choice. 3 months passed like a held breath. Earth prepared for war, but this time the galaxy watched openly. News of the Veltheran fleet's destruction had spread across thousands of worlds. Some civilizations celebrated, others trembled, and the Korthax Dominion assembled their massive armada with cold determination, ready to prove that humanity's victory was luck, not skill. Premier Haniel stood before the newly formed United Earth government, addressing representatives from every nation. She was young for a world leader, barely 40, but she had been elected specifically because of her vision for humanity's future. The old guards who had kept secrets for decades were stepping aside. A new generation was taking control, and they had different ideas about Earth's role in the galaxy. We have a choice to make, Premier Haniel said, her voice carrying through the assembly hall. The Vaxian Council has offered us membership. They want our protection, but accepting means we commit to defending not just Earth but 23 other worlds. Are we ready for that responsibility? The debate raged for hours. Some argued that Earth should focus only on its own defense. Others insisted that humanity had a moral obligation to protect weaker civilizations. The vote was close, but in the end, the decision was clear. Earth would join the Vaxian Council. Humanity would become guardians, not isolationists. Ambassador Kyung delivered the news to Councillor Rithmas personally. We accept your offer, he said. But we have conditions. We won't share the Singularity Net technology. We won't become your weapons, but we will defend any Council world that faces aggression. That is all we ask, Rithmas replied, his forearms spreading in a gesture of gratitude. The Korthax fleet is approaching one of our colony worlds right now. They will arrive in 2 weeks. Will you honor your commitment so soon? We will, Kyung confirmed. Send us the coordinates. In the command center, Admiral Hyun assembled his team for the mission briefing. Captain Doyen would command the defensive operations. Commander Jiwan would lead a strike force of 12 Ghost Phoenix interceptors. Professor Taeyang would deploy his new subspace barrier technology for the first time in actual combat. And Dr. Minji would coordinate everything from the main command station. This is different from the Velteron engagement, Admiral Hyun explained. The Korthax aren't coming to Earth. They're attacking a Vaxian colony world called Veran Prime. 40,000 ships against a peaceful civilization that has no military capabilities. They expect an easy conquest, and what's our objective? Captain Doyen asked. We don't destroy them, Admiral Hyun said firmly. We disable them. We prove that our power isn't just for annihilation. We show the galaxy that we can defeat an enemy without killing them. The Korthax fleet arrived at Veran Prime exactly on schedule. 40,000 warships dropped out of hyperspace in perfect formation. The Vaxian colonists below sent desperate messages for help. They had 3 million people on the planet, families and children, all of them about to die. The Korthax broadcast their demands: evacuate the planet in 6 hours or be destroyed. But the Vaxians had received a message from Earth. Help is coming. Hold on. Fleet Commander Zorath led the Korthax Armada from his flagship, the Iron Fist. He had heard the stories about humanity, about the Veltheran fleet's destruction. He didn't believe them. 12,000 ships destroyed in seconds? Impossible. It must have been a malfunction in the Veltheran vessels. Or perhaps they surrendered without fighting. The Korthax would not make such mistakes. Begin planetary bombardment in 6 hours, Zorath ordered. And if these humans try to interfere, destroy them too, but the humans were already there. Professor Taeyang activated the subspace barrier from a hidden station in the asteroid belt surrounding Veran Prime. The barrier was invisible but absolute. It wrapped around the entire planet like a soap bubble made of bent space. When the Korthax fired their first test shots, the weapons simply vanished into the barrier and reappeared harmlessly in deep space, thousands of light years away. What? Zorath stared at his instruments in confusion. Where did our weapons go? Fleet Commander, his tactical officer reported. We're detecting massive spatial distortions around the planet. Some kind of dimensional field. Our weapons can't penetrate it, then we'll break it, Zorath growled. All ships concentrate fire on one point. Overload their barrier with sheer firepower. 40,000 ships opened fire simultaneously. Enough energy to vaporize a moon struck the subspace barrier. The barrier didn't even flicker. Every shot vanished harmlessly, redirected across the galaxy. Captain Doyen watched from his command ship, the Shield of Varen. The barrier is holding perfectly. Professor Taeyang, you're a genius. The barrier will hold indefinitely, Taeyang replied. But we need to deal with the fleet. We can't just keep them locked out forever. That's when Commander Jiwan made her move. The 12 Ghost Phoenix interceptors phased into normal space directly in the middle of the Korthax formation. Before the enemy could react, each interceptor released a pulse of specially designed electromagnetic energy. The pulses were harmless to organic life, but devastating to ship systems. Computer cores fried. Power systems shut down. Weapon arrays went dark. Communication networks collapsed. 40,000 warships lost all power in less than 10 seconds. Zorath watched in horror as his mighty flagship went dark. Emergency lights flickered on, but everything else was dead. Around him, his entire fleet floated helplessly, drifting in space like dead fish in an ocean. This is Commander Jiwan of Earth to the Korthax fleet. Her voice came through their emergency channels. Your ships are disabled but intact. Your crews are alive and unharmed. You have two choices. Turn around and go home, or we escalate. We can disable you, or we can destroy you. The choice is yours. Zorath's pride warred with his survival instinct. He wanted to fight back, wanted to prove the Korthax were strong. But he remembered what happened to the Veltharans. Their fleet hadn't been disabled. It had been obliterated, erased from existence in seconds. The humans were showing mercy. Attacking them again would be suicide. This is Fleet Commander Zorath to all ships, he broadcast. Stand down! Accept rescue from the humans. We retreat. Over the next 3 days, human vessels arrived with power cores and repair equipment. They helped restore the Korthax ships to minimal functionality, enough to return home. Not a single Korthax soldier died. Their ships were returned to them intact, and the entire galaxy watched every moment of it through broadcast drones that humanity had placed throughout the system. The message was clear. Humanity could destroy you, but they would rather save you. Back on Earth, Fleet Admiral Sunwoo addressed the galaxy once again. The Korthax fleet came to Varen Prime to conquer. We stopped them without firing a shot. This is the way humanity operates. We defend, but we don't destroy unless absolutely necessary. Any civilization is welcome to test us, but understand that we will respond to aggression with overwhelming force tempered by mercy. The galaxy's response was immediate and dramatic. 12 more peaceful civilizations applied to join the Vaxian Council, seeking humanity's protection. The Veltharan resistance movement successfully overthrew their emperor, establishing a new democratic government. The Korthax Dominion issued a formal apology and opened diplomatic relations with Earth, and 5 other aggressive empires quietly canceled their expansion plans in the direction of human protected. Space Ambassador Kyung found himself suddenly very busy. Diplomatic requests flooded in from across the galaxy. Everyone wanted to talk to the humans, to understand them, to form alliances or trade agreements. Earth went from being an unknown primitive world to being the most influential civilization in the galaxy in just 3 months. But not everyone was happy about humanity's rise. Director Yoonji brought Admiral Hyun the troubling news late one night. Long-range sensors have detected something beyond the galactic rim. Something massive. It's not a fleet. It's not a ship. We're not sure what it is. But whatever it is, it makes every civilization we've encountered look primitive by comparison. Admiral Hyun studied the sensor readings. The object was enormous, larger than a solar system. It was moving slowly but deliberately toward the galaxy. At its current speed, it would arrive in approximately 5 years. What do we know about it? He asked. Nothing, Director Yoonji admitted. The Architect Probe's database mentions something called the Harvesters, beings that appear between galactic cycles, but the records are incomplete, corrupted. Whatever this thing is, it's beyond anything the architects faced. Admiral Hyun looked out the window at the night sky. Earth was safe. The Vaxian Council was protected. Humanity had proven itself as guardians, but something was coming. Something that might make all their victories meaningless. Then we have 5 years to prepare, he said finally. Increase production of Ghost Phoenix interceptors. Deploy subspace barriers around every council world. Continue researching new technologies, and find out everything we can about these harvesters. And if we can't stop them? Director Yoonji asked quietly. Then we fight anyway, Admiral Hyun replied. That's what humanity does. We face impossible odds and we survive. We've done it before. We'll do it again. On Earth, in a small cafe in Seoul, citizens watched news reports about the Korthak's defeat. Life had returned to normal. Part 2. The Illusion of Weakness. The Veltheron fleet moved through space like a swarm of metal locusts. Their scanners swept Earth's orbital space, searching for threats, finding nothing. Below them, the blue planet turned slowly, seemingly helpless. Cities glowed in the darkness like clusters of candles waiting to be snuffed out. Vexthar stood on his bridge, savoring the moment before conquest. This was what the Empire did best. This was their purpose, written across 3,000 years of galactic history. Deploy the siege formation, he commanded. Surround the planet. Cut off any possibility of escape. The 12,000 ships spread out in a sphere around Earth. Each vessel found its position with mathematical precision. They had done this so many times before. The pattern was ancient, proven unstoppable. Soon they would begin the bombardment and another primitive world would fall. Hidden in the asteroid belt beyond Mars, Commander Ji-won sat in the cockpit of her experimental interceptor. The ship was called Ghost Phoenix, and it was unlike anything humanity had revealed to the galaxy. Its hull shimmered and flickered, phasing in and out of normal space. She could slip between dimensions, become invisible, move through solid matter if needed. Right now, she watched the Veltheran fleet through sensors they couldn't detect. Ghost Phoenix to command, she whispered into her comm. The enemy has taken the bait. They're spreading out just like we wanted. Confirmed, Admiral Hyun's voice crackled back. Hold position. Do not engage. Let them think they're alone. Ji-won smiled. She had trained for this mission her entire life. Her parents had been part of the original team that discovered the crashed probe in 1987. She grew up around the technology, learned to fly ships that defied physics, mastered weapons that bent reality itself. And now finally she got to use those skills. On the Eternal Dominion, Subcommander Calyx studied his instruments with increasing unease. Something was wrong. His sensors showed nothing unusual, but his instincts screamed warnings. The silence from their scouts bothered him. The complete lack of orbital defenses bothered him. Everything was too easy, too perfect. Fleet Master, he said carefully. I recommend caution. This planet has been broadcasting radio signals for over a century. They should have developed at least basic space defense by now. Where are their weapons? Where are their ships? Vexithar turned his three eyes toward his tactical officer. They have nothing because they are primitives. They sent nuclear missiles at us, Calyx. Nuclear missiles. Do you understand how pathetic that is? Civilizations abandoned nuclear weapons 10,000 years ago. These creatures are children playing with stones. Yes, Fleet Master, but enough. Begin target selection. I want their largest cities destroyed first. We'll leave enough survivors to work the mines and factories, but we need to break their spirit immediately. Far below, in the hidden facility beneath the Korean mountains, Professor Taeyang watched his displays with fierce concentration. He was an old man now, but his mind remained sharp. He had invented the dimensional anchor technology, the system that would trap the Veltheran fleet. For 40 years he had refined it, tested it, prepared for this exact moment. The quantum field is stable, he reported to Admiral Hyun. All 12,000 enemy vessels are within the containment zone. If they try to jump to hyperspace now, the anchors will prevent it. They're locked in normal space with us. And the singularity net? Admiral Hyun asked. Ready. Give the word, and we can activate it in under 4 seconds. Dr. Minji moved between stations, checking and rechecking every system. The singularity net was humanity's ultimate weapon, reverse-engineered from the ancient probe's database. It created localized gravity wells, artificial black holes that could be controlled with quantum precision. Each singularity was tiny, no bigger than a marble, but dense enough to crush a starship into nothingness. The net could create 12,000 singularities simultaneously, one for each enemy vessel. "We've tested this 100 times in simulation," she reminded Admiral Hyun. "But never at this scale. Never with real targets." "Will it work?" he asked. "Yes," she said with absolute confidence. "It will work." Above them, on the surface, people huddled in their homes. Some gathered in churches, temples, and mosques. Others stood on rooftops watching the enemy fleet through binoculars and telescopes. The ships were visible now, dark shapes passing in front of stars. Everyone knew death was coming. Parents held their children. Lovers embraced. Strangers comforted strangers. Humanity faced its end with courage born of desperation. But a few people knew the truth. Government officials who had been briefed. Scientists who had worked on the projects. Military personnel stationed at hidden bases. They watched the same sky with different emotions. Not fear, but anticipation. Not despair, but grim satisfaction. The enemy had walked into their trap perfectly. Commander Jiwon activated her ship's advanced scanners and began mapping the Veltharan fleet in detail. She recorded energy signatures, analyzed weapon systems, studied their shield configurations. All of this data flowed back to Earth's command center, where tactical computers processed it instantly. The Veltharans had strong shields, powerful weapons, and impressive armor. Against any normal civilization, they would be unstoppable. Against humanity's secret arsenal, they were already ghosts. Ghost Phoenix, be advised. Admiral Hyun's voice came through her comm. "We're detecting unusual energy readings from their flagship. They may be preparing to fire." "Confirmed," Jiwon replied, studying her instruments. "The Eternal Dominion is charging its primary weapon. Looks like a plasma lance, big one, probably enough to crack a continent. Target selection? They're aiming at Tokyo." Admiral Hyun was silent for 3 seconds. Then his voice came back, cold and final. "Activate the Singularity Net. Destroy them. All of them. Now." But before the order could be executed, Vexithar made a decision that sealed his fate. He wanted these primitives to see what they faced. He wanted them to understand the futility of resistance. So instead of firing immediately, he broadcast another message to Earth. "People of the planet Earth." His voice boomed across every frequency. "You see our fleet surrounding your world. You see the weapons pointed at your cities. You have one final chance to surrender. Bow before the Veltharan Empire, or watch your civilization burn. You have 60 seconds to respond." In the command center, Admiral Hyun listened to the broadcast. Then he pressed the red button. "Execute Protocol Nightfall," he said quietly. "Let's show them what humanity can do." The Singularity Net activated. 12,000 points in space began to distort. Reality bent, gravity screamed, and the Veltharan, Imperial Armada, the greatest military force in their empire's history, had exactly 7 seconds left to exist. Vexithar saw the readings spike on his instruments. Kaelix shouted a warning, but neither of them understood what was happening until it was far too late. The darkness around them began to twist, and something impossible reached out to crush them all.